Hey everyone, welcome to Limitless Radiocast, episode 30. Today we hang out with not only an amazing man at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but a man who runs an amazing YouTube channel and podcast called Welcome to the Art of Skill. And remember to go out and check out rollamongus.com for all your fight gear needs. Fight shorts, rash guards, gis, t-shirts. rollamongus.com. At checkout, put in Limitless 20. And also go out and check out battlebomb.com. They have CBD and non-CBD infused rub for all those aches and pains that you might get during any kind of training, everyday work, everyday life. Remember, at checkout, Limitless 20 for a 20% discount, battlebomb.com. And we are proud to bring this show to you by Magic City Brewing Company located in Akron, Ohio. Go out, check them out. Great place ran by great people. Also, check out M&H Beans for all your coffee needs. Get a subscription. They'll ship all over the world. They have amazing coffee, some of the best coffee in the world. On this show, we drink it all the time. It's drink in my household. We drink it multiple times. Dad speakers, highly recommend. Go out there, check out M&H Beans. Without further ado, thanks for joining us and enjoy the show. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Today, we're hanging out with a fellow Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, Rick Ellis. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Roy Dean. He's also the head instructor at Third Way Jiu-Jitsu in Laramie, Wyoming, if I pronounced that correctly. And
Laramie.
Laramie. Okay, yeah. Laramie. And he also is the host of the Art of Skill podcast, man. Thanks, Rick, for hanging out with us. Appreciate it so much. It's going to be a great time just talking about jiu-jitsu and life.
My pleasure, guys. It's actually kind of fun for me to be on this side, so I don't have to think about it too much, because when it's my podcast, there's always a little bit of stress, right? Because you're like, okay, make sure that everything's technically working okay. And so it's nice to just be chilling.
Good, man. I'm glad. That's good. How you guys doing? How's the gym doing?
Good. We are a college town here. The University of Wyoming is here.
Nice. Okay.
And so summers get a little bit light. Everybody clears out. There's 15,000 students, and most of them leave during the summer. So summers are a little slow for us. Okay. We trim back sometimes some of the classes, but they're all starting to pour back into town right now. And so it's going to get crazy. Good.
That's awesome, man. That's very cool. How many students do you guys usually have?
Well, our mat space is small. I mean, we can handle we top out about 26 students on the mat. I mean, that's pretty tight. Occasionally we do, if everybody showed up, we have no place to put them all, but
so everyone starts in guard.
Yeah, we're not doing takedowns typically those nights. So some days we do, and it's a disaster those nights, but yeah. And we're a wrestling town, that's
what I was going to ask you. Do you get a lot of wrestlers in?
We do. The University of Wyoming has a good wrestling team,
yes, they do.
So there's a bit of a wrestling influence in here, and that kind of ebbs and flows. Certain times a year, our wrestling crew will really grow, and a lot of times Saturdays open mat turns into just pure wrestling, which is pretty fun.
Nice.
And they're starting to come back. I've got a couple guys now that are just, man, they're so good. They're just really fluid, and they they flow real nice. It's just really an amazing thing.
And were they ex-wrestlers?
Yeah.
Or are they currently? Do you have current students that are wrestlers?
I don't. I had one guy who was he was waiting to find out whether he would get onto the team. So he trained with us for a while, but then he got word that he's on the team. So he's doing that now.
Sure. Well, good for him though. Yeah, that's awesome that he got, and he can always come back. I mean, this like jiu-jitsu is a lifelong.
This guy was a stud. He was unchokeable. He was just one of those guys. Didn't know much jiu-jitsu, but man, he was tough. He was really tough.
Yeah, we've had those guys come in last year after the pandemic. You remember what was his name? Grant from Mount Union. Yeah. He was a D3 wrestler, Mount Union College around here, but he placed like 7th in the nation. Yeah. He was 22 years old, 6'3", about 240. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do, man?
What do you do with that?
You swallow your pride. Yeah. You realize that, okay, I'm a black belt.
Yep.
But he's going to be hard to deal with.
Yeah.
And he was. I never rolled with him because I knew better. I was like, I'm in my 40s. I'm a white belt. So he was a white belt too, but my wrestling was 30 years ago.
Listen, Nicky Rodriguez got silver at Abu Dhabi as a blue belt. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
There are those guys out there that it's just a different thing.
Yeah.
And they have that natural,
that's the mat awareness that they have is, you can't teach a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I had a new guy come in the other day and I was rolling with him, white belt. He had trained a little bit somewhere else. And I couldn't sweep this kid. He was really hard to sweep. And I was like, bro, you wrestled, didn't you? He goes, yeah. Okay.
It's that base. And that's funny. Like I've told people in the gym and they've asked me after we've rolled, when I first started, they were like, you wrestled. I'm like, man, it was like, 30 years ago is when I wrestled, but it stayed with me and my base was strong and I couldn't, those type of sweeps, like I would recover very fast. The scissor sweep or whatever, if I was on my knees or whatever. And then, as always, Chad's like yelling at me to get off my knees. And then I learned to get off my knees. So I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be on your back.
At least not that you admit. Right.
Yeah. If he's not looking, I'm like, I'm so tired. These knees feel good right now. I do want to ask you this. What inspired you to make the I'm old, so what video?
Well, I'm kind of old.
You're not that old. You're doing jiu-jitsu, man. I mean,
I'm vintage.
There you go. I like that.
I like that too.
It's funny because I'll digress a moment, but I started this channel on YouTube, which is a little strange because originally the Art of Skill channel was not supposed to be me. We had a little bit of some resources that we were going to pour into this project, and it was going to be a streaming media platform, and it was going to be an educational platform. And our goal was to bring, other instructors and all this kind of stuff. I had this, sort of grandiose plan for it. And so last year I created just a little bit of initial content just to have something on the YouTube channel while we scaled this thing up. And then, some things changed in my life. Some of those resources kind of dried up and they weren't really available. And then COVID hit and it really hurt us. And so I literally didn't do anything with that channel in like a year. There was just a few videos that I did way back when, a year ago. I hadn't even looked at the channel. And then one day I poked in there and I realized, this channel has 5,000 subscribers, literally with me doing nothing over the last year. And then my instructor, Roy Dean, who, I've been his creative partner on a ton of stuff, a lot of his video projects. I've always been kind of a creative force as well in there. And I've got a creative background and stuff. And so when I saw that this channel was growing, I thought, okay, maybe I should rethink this a little bit. Maybe it doesn't have to be this grandiose, thing. Sure. I can scale it way back. And I did this one video that was just me talking head, where I was talking about being old and doing jiu-jitsu. And that video blew up. It got, 60 some thousand views. And then I had this epiphany. I realized, maybe there's a kind of a need in the marketplace out there for content for the older grapplers, guys that are getting into jiu-jitsu, guys that are, confronted by the particular challenges of being a little older, trying to do this young man's sport. And it seems like every time I do a video that has kind of an older bent to it, it just tends to get a ton of views. And so I'm experimenting. I don't know what this channel ultimately is going to be. I really want it to be more than just me. Right now, it's just me. I'm doing I'm doing a podcast. I'm creating some original content, but mostly I'm just every day I get up and I think, okay, I got to do something for the channel. What can I do for the channel? And it's whatever inspiration strikes me, and I'll just do it. And that was just something I thought of that morning. And I had some footage of me rolling, some footage of me training. And I thought, I'll just write a little voiceover and I'll do it. And it was pretty well received.
Super.
I stumbled across it on YouTube and I'm like, who is it? I wasn't sure who you were, who it was. And I'm looking, I'm like, find your name. My friend request you. Yeah. It was one of them videos that it hit me. It resonated.
I got, a few people ping me, a couple kind of notable guys out there in jiu-jitsu. One guy pinged me privately and he said, man, I'm going to show this to my dad. And so it kind of, those things kind of resonate. Sort of motivational, the indomitable spirit, if you will. And it's funny because I'm kind of an introvert by nature, and I don't think I'm anything particularly special. I'm just a guy that does jiu-jitsu, and I just haven't quit. But I think that a lot of people they draw inspiration from that, and sometimes
so many. I mean, I sent it to a lot of my older grapplers, and I sent it to Terry. It like fired us up just to like, let's, I do a daily like push up and pull up routine, and I'm like, I got to go do some pull ups right now.
Yeah.
But it's stuff we all hear, like, you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Or like I've been in martial arts since I was 7 years old. I'll be 46 next month.
Yeah.
But, you hear, and usually most of my, all of our friends become guys that only train, right? Yep. You don't have those, but I'll run into high school friends or my family, like, you still do that stuff? Yeah, I still do that stuff. At some point they think you should just stop.
It's a weird subculture, this jiu-jitsu thing. And if you're on the inside, you get it.
Yeah.
You totally get it. If you're on the outside, it's a foreign land.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I went back and after seeing that video, I was like, oh, where did Rick have this? And, so then that's when I went and seen your YouTube page, and I was like, there's a ton of great content on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it. Go ahead, Rick.
No, I was just going to say it's fairly new. It's just me kind of being a little OCD, trying to,
there's nothing wrong
push out as much content as I can. And I'm trying to not overthink it. What's funny is the guy that's encouraging me the most to do this is Roy Dean. He'll call me up. He's like, dude, just keep doing it. Don't overthink it. Just keep pushing stuff out. And because again, I'm kind of an introvert. I'm, a little bit of a loner. Like I'm not fully comfortable being the star of my own reality TV show.
Sure, right. It's hard. Yeah. Especially if you're like that, like an introverted person. And I'm kind of like that too. I think Chad's kind of like that too. We're kind of introverted, where you make your friends like in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And then when you do other things, you're like
perfectly happy in solitude doing your own thing. And
like,
I'll push these videos out and I don't even go back and look at them most of the time. I'm like, it makes me cringe. I don't want to look at that. So I push it and then I let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a weird place to be for me, but I'm enjoying it, and it's a creative expression, and hopefully it's resonating with some people.
Don't quit doing it. It's amazing content. And I think it's content that is valuable both for anyone and everyone to understand, even the small little words in there or small little something to pick up. Being an older grappler, I didn't start till I was 42 years old. And it was like, like people are like, why would you do this so late? It's like, well, I did martial arts my whole life. And I didn't start jiu-jitsu because of hearing it talked about in like other worlds. It was me wanting to test myself. I was like, I want to see who I am. Like, I want to see what I'm made of. Like, I love to work out. I'm a kind of a gym rat still, mentally. And I like to push myself. And I've actually been going through like a slump, I think like midlife thing right now, which I kind of joke with Chad about it. He sends me your video and I watch it like 100 times. Just kept watching over and over. I sent it to my wife and she was like,
okay, now you're creeping me out. Bro.
Yeah. No, man. I was like, oh, he's right. Like, I got to do something. Like, I just got to just stop worrying about all this other stuff and just do it. So I appreciate it.
If it's any consolation, I was 41, like late 41 when I started jiu-jitsu with a bunch of Taekwondo guys who were just training on a Thursday night. Nobody knew anything. And then I was about 42 when I officially started training with Roy Dean when he opened his academy. I was one of his first students. So stay on the path, brother. It's, and
I have good there. And the awesome thing about doing this podcast, even I've surrounded myself with great outlets, great people. I mean, Chad's a great coach. He's my coach. We teamed up to do this podcast. We talked about it last year during, COVID was heavy here in Ohio. And we talked about it a while, and then we just said, screw it, let's do it. and next thing you know, like, we just did it, dropped our first episode the beginning of this year, and we just done it every week. And that's what he's like, just keep going, just keep grinding. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like doing this, like, let's just keep grinding, so I get it, man. Just keep going, keep showing up, keep pushing, get out there and train. And I love training. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love it. I think I just was like comparing myself with other things.
Well, it's a difficult journey. Jiu-jitsu it's not a linear progression. There's peaks, there are valleys. It's its own thing. And you have to not get too down during the down times. You have to not get too high during the high time, the times when you're doing well.
Sure.
But it's a tough journey, and you will have those times, sometimes long stretches, where it just feels like nothing is working, feels like you're just waging the same battles night in and night out. But that sometimes is the indicator that you're on the edge of a breakthrough, because guys have figured you out. Now you have to figure out that next thing, or you've gotten bored with that thing that was working for you, but you don't have that next thing yet. So sometimes it's just, you just have to keep, just like the podcast, you're just doing it every week. You're just doing it. And you will have those breakthroughs. And then it's really rewarding and worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there has been all that, everything you're saying, like that's where I've been, in my short time of doing it, because I've, things will be working. I'll be feeling really great. And then it's like, all of a sudden it's not working anymore. And it's like, what the crap? Like, this is awful.
It's awful, but that is the indicator that you need to grow more. I mean, because we're not in a static environment. Everyone around you is getting better, and everyone's figuring you out. You're figuring them out. So we're all pushing ourselves to get better. And the minute they figure out that thing you're doing, you don't have that thing anymore. And now what? And now you're frustrated, and it feels like nothing's working, but you're on the path.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
Just keep grinding. Keep working. keep listening to the coach saying, "Hey, you don't suck. Just keep coming. Keep doing this."
Listen, I've had to talk many guys off the ledge. It's a common thing, man. If this was easy, everybody would do it, but it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And most people quit. Most people fall off the path at some point on the journey. And a lot of times they fall off just because they don't have that internal resilience to just keep doing it, because it's hard, and they start feeling bad about themselves. But the reality is, this is what you need, because you need to overcome. You need to overcome it.
Yeah. Did that help like push you into not training, but teaching others, like to be an instructor? Did you see, talking about being an introvert and then coaching people? It's like, how did that work for you?
Well, what's funny? I was so I trained directly under Roy for about 4 years, white belt to purple belt. We ended up moving after I got my purple belt. We moved to Maui for a year. We were a little bit transient for quite a few years, because I was working online, and we could literally, my laptop was my business, so we could live anywhere. So we kind of bounced around. We ended up in Maine on an acreage for a while. And so we're just kind of all over the place. But because Roy's Academy was pretty new, I became one of his go-to instructors that he would rotate in when he wasn't able to teach. And so I got some early experiences teaching. And then as a brown belt, we ended up moving to Laramie. We were dabbling with the idea of moving here for some other reasons, to be a little closer to my wife's family and, some other reasons, but there was no jiu-jitsu in Laramie. And, it's funny, if you train long enough, I think everybody dabbles with this idea of, I could run a gym. I could teach jiu-jitsu, but then when you're confronted with that reality, sometimes you're like, I don't know, do I want to run a gym? Do I, there's this internal thing going on.
Internal battle.
And so we were dabbling with this idea of moving to Wyoming, and I thought, man, this is a wrestling town. Do I want to be the man? I don't know if I want to be the man.
Sure.
But it turns out I needed to train, and I thought, okay, well, someone's got to be the man. I'll be the man. And honestly, it's been phenomenal. Roy calls running your own academy, or, teaching full-time, or teaching on a much more consistent basis, he calls it finishing school, because that's where you really go deep into the technique. If you're a student, you're very internally focused.
Sure.
This is what you need. When you're a teacher, you have to be very externally focused, and you have to really understand all those sticky points and all the techniques you teach. And it really forces you to understand the game better and understand how to bring people up, how to give them what they need, how to deal with a mixed skill room. You start with something basic, but you end with something complex, or there's just a lot of things that you have to learn as an instructor. So I'm glad I did it. It's still fun for me. I'm a little old to be doing it, honestly, and I roll a lot. I'm on the mat a lot, but it's totally good. It's, I still enjoy it.
I mean, that's medicine for the soul too, because you have a passion for it. And you're giving back to people, you're teaching people, and you're guiding them. I mean, it really goes back to, that video and the other content that you've put on the page is that this is an inspiration. So not only are you teaching in class, but you're teaching externally too, to give. And like you said, the journey's hard. It's a super hard journey. It's probably the hardest journey you're going to do to physically, to yourself, like physically to yourself. Like you can be a power lifter, you can be, a great athlete or whatever, but grappling, there's just something that's totally different about it because you can be beat up a lot versus losing games, but you're at a team effort. But, I get it when you wrestle, but majority of wrestlers do not wrestle their entire life. Yeah. They have sections, all through high school, maybe college, if they're fortunate enough and they're good enough. And then that's kind of it. Like they're not going off, a few of them. Yeah, they're going to hit the Olympics and whatnot. But other than that, it's like, that's it. Grappling, you can grapple your entire life until you're older. And Chad and I have a joke. We have an older guest that we talked to, and we talked about making walkers that you can walk out on the mat with. And we joked about that. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely where I'm kind of at mentally. I'm on the mat. I'm never coming off. Like anytime I'm at the gym, even if I stop in, I want to go on the mat.
The beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu is I consider it a human technology, right? It's right on. Yeah. It's physical and mental. It's just a technology. And the beautiful thing about it is that there are always technical solutions to all the physical problems we face. I mean, I'm fond of saying that, but it's true. And the longer you train, and this is why jiu-jitsu is one of the few sports where you can actually be highly effective at the sport, even as an older athlete, even as your physical attributes diminish, because you are finding technical solutions to those problems. Whereas if you're playing basketball, well, at some point your knees aren't going to work as well. You're just not going to be able to do it as well. It's not as much of a mental game as say something like jiu-jitsu, where strategy and, those points of leverage, that treachery, there's just a lot to it that you can bring that allows you to be successful even as an older athlete. And to me, that's sort of becoming my quest, is how can I continue to be more effective every single year I do this, despite the fact that by all other measures, I'm diminishing. Maybe my strength is I think you can maintain some strength as you get older if you continue to train that. But every other metric declines, your mobility declines, by every other measure, you're not the same.
You're right. And that's where I think we come in mentally, right? To have our mind right.
Yeah,
a lot. Because to me, and it might have been one of your other videos, I'll be 46 next month. And, when you have a birthday, everybody's like, what's it feel like to be 46?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm 30, right? I'm still rolling with all my students, no matter of age or size, and we go at it. Yeah. So, I don't know what that means, right? Does that make sense?
So you're exactly right. You don't know what it means, but it does. Those battles do get a little harder, and
they do.
The recovery's a little harder. Like, you have to modify your game. You can't just go head to head every night with these guys. You have to learn to train smarter. And that's the thing about getting older, is it just forces you to either adapt to a new reality and learn to be effective with that new reality, or you're just going to get injured. You just can't go head to head.
Yeah. 100%.
You can't go head to head. Yeah. And I'm 6 foot, 150 pounds. So I'm still waiting on my old man strength to come in. But I always tell everybody I traded it for flexibility, which I'll take,
flexibility is insane.
But even getting older and being a smaller, not height wise, but a skinnier grappler, I have to be even more careful, I feel,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Every body type has its own challenges, and you have to work within those constraints. Sometimes that offers opportunities. If you're a little leaner, you can insert yourself into those windows of opportunity better. You can slip and move, and you don't have as much bulk to move around. And so there's advantages. But if you're lighter, if you're smaller, you have to be more technical. The one kind of, I suppose, big advantage of it is that it really forces you to be more technical. If you're bigger, bulkier, you can just not be as technical and have success. And it's really hard to teach those guys to listen. There are technical levels to this. You need to roll like you are weak. It's really, that's a really hard thing to convey. Whereas, if you're a little smaller, you're just naturally going to be more technical. And in the long run, that's going to serve you very, very well.
Sure. I like that statement too, Chad. That's a great statement. Yeah. Roll like you're weak.
Roll like you're weak.
Yeah. Roll like you're weak. And I've told Chad this, it's something that I do. I'm 6'1", 220, but I'm like, I want to move. Like I want to be more technical. Like I can do stuff and get the positions, and I'm super strong in certain positions and I can hold them. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't just want to be here. Like I want to be able to do technical things and do stuff. And
all that stuff is all and good until your strength is out techniques, right? There's a line for, and I always try to get people like, so what, it worked on somebody smaller, have it work on somebody bigger. You don't want one thing that works on every, each individual body type. It needs to work on everybody.
Sure.
I always look at strength as something that should be more internally focused than externally focused. In other words, if you're using your strength to muscle guys around, that's the wrong application of strength. If you're using your strength to be agile and to be efficient in your own movements so that you can always go to that next thing and you can catch stuff in transition, then that's a beautiful way to use your own strength. And so trying to get guys to make that fundamental shift from thinking their strength is to be used against the opponent versus to be used internally to work with the opponent in a sense.
Yeah.
And that takes time. It just takes practice.
Sure. Yeah. And the art of flowing. I mean, that's jujitsu, more outside of just going, hey, it's grappling and it's a fight. And I mean, except when you see two white belts, we understand that. Go ahead, Chad. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, but I was gonna say, like Rick said, it's hard to tell somebody, don't be strong, don't do that, because you are, I mean, I haven't done it a long.
Being strong can be very useful sometimes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
We had a couple guys. This is years ago. These guys were just being strong and wouldn't listen and gripping up. And I made them roll with tennis balls in their hands. So they couldn't grip up, and it worked. I mean, it made them change everything. So.
Yeah. I've got a friend, he's a real good brown belt, also affiliated under Roy. And he was the first guy that I heard say, roll with tennis balls in your hands. And I was like, what are you talking about, bro? And he explained it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
You're like, no chance. Not doing that. If I come to the gym and you're like, here's your tennis balls, I'm going home. I'll just give them to my 7-year-old son. I'll be like, here, you go and train jujitsu, because he's training jujitsu now too. And like, here, buddy, you hold these. And it'll be like, why? I might throw them at you, Dad. Oh, well. Yeah, I'm not using those tennis balls thing. I need my strength. I'm old. I feel old going against all those young guys. How long have you guys been open as a gym, Rick?
We are coming up on our 5th year.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. Very cool. Cool. Very good. That's so good in terms of, because it's hard, like you said, and you're in a town that was like a wrestling town. Yeah. It wasn't per se. Are you now a jiu-jitsu town? Sort of? Because you're there?
We've been down there. We're kind of a fixture. We're in the old downtown. There's the, kind of classic downtown area, the old cowboy. Laramie used to be an old cowboy town with literally, it used to be a brothel upstairs from my
oh, no kidding,
my dojo until apparently a new sheriff came to town. This is like early 1900s and cleared the town out and stuff. So there's a ton of history. There are tunnels underneath. Wow. The main, the streets down there. Sure. Apparently there used to be these tunnels that allowed you to go from business to business, or maybe, maybe sneak out after the battle. Yeah. I mean, it's a real interesting town, but it was an old cowboy town, and now it's a college town. And so, but there's a real, kind of a cool history to it. And so we're downtown. We've become kind of a fixture down there now, which is pretty good. And so our growth every year we grow a little more. We're still small. It's a tiny academy, but we've been there long enough now that everybody knows we're here.
And that's huge, especially after what we've kind of all gone through, and that we all have gone through, especially last year, Yeah. So for you guys to still keep going and keep grinding, and 5 years is an awesome anniversary to celebrate, and to know it's a success, and you're teaching and passing your, lineage, and your whole, what is your whole lineage?
So my instructor is Roy Dean, who, is pretty well known in the world of jiu-jitsu. Yep. His instructor is Roy Harris, who's one of the Dirty Dozen, one of the first 12 non-Brazilians to get his black belt. And He's amazing. Roy Harris is, I mean, they call him the Boa. He is no joke. His game is no joke. You want to talk about crushing pressure. But what's interesting is, although he's most known in the world of jiu-jitsu as, you know, he's most known as a jiu-jitsu practitioner at a very high level. He will tell you that jiu-jitsu is not even his favorite art. He has studied many, many arts and gone very deep. I don't think I've ever met anyone that's as OCD about martial arts as him. I mean, like to a level that's almost clinically. I was going to say
clinically, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, you know, he's a unique, kind of a quirky, unique guy, but he's legit in many different arts. He got his black belt. Go ahead.
I thought I heard he had done Jeet Kune Do or something before, or something, you know.
Yeah, he did Jeet Kune Do. He's done he's into stick fighting and knife fighting. He trains with live blades all the time. He loves live blades. Wow. He will grapple with live blades. I mean, he's into all sorts of stuff. He's into finger locks these days. And, you know, he's just one of these guys that's always looking for that next, expression of martial arts.
Sure. He goes down the rabbit hole. I mean, he
goes down every rabbit hole. He's a really good kickboxer. He's getting older now. You know, I trained with him a few months ago. He was passing through Denver, and I went down and trained with them. And what's funny is it seems like he has a little trouble getting down to the mats these days, but once he's down there, forget it. You're toast.
You're done.
If you bump fists. And he got his black belt from Joe Moreira, who we all know. And he got his black belt from Francisco Mansur, who got it from Hélio. So I'm nice. About five removed from Hélio.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that is very awesome. Yeah, great lineage and great history there. And obviously the torch keeps passing, and you're passing that on to students. And, you know, I always tell all our guests this all the time, like, don't ever think or sell yourself short. Like, your knowledge is being passed, you know. And I always, you know, typically, there's two huge questions that I always like to ask our guest. What does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Jiu-Jitsu mean to you, and what do you want your legacy to be? Very tough questions. Yeah.
Don't ask me, brother. You know, it's funny. I just saw Flow Grappling had a little a video called American Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a little thing now that where some Americans, you know, Keenan Cornelius calls his academy Legion American Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. So some guys are like, well, wait a minute. The Brazilians just took Japanese jiu-jitsu and judo. They just took old school judo and they called it Brazilian jiu-jitsu because it was their thing. Why can't we incorporate wrestling and the American attitude into this and call it American jiu-jitsu? Sure. So it's kind of funny to watch the evolution of the sport in that regard.
Yeah, because I think the Pettigrew guys, they call it American jiu-jitsu too, don't they? Yeah, I thought so. And we had, go ahead, Chad. Were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna. Same thing.
Yeah, that's right. We had Wilty, and you know who Wilty is. Wilty came and did a seminar, and you know, and he's a great guy. He's you know, good personal guy. Obviously, great at jiu-jitsu. And I got to roll with him and stuff, and we rolled and we talked for a while, and then did some stuff, and we talked about that a little bit. And he talked about just incorporating what we do here, like that attitude. You know, like his stuff that's super aggressive or, you know, whatever. Not that any grappling is aggressive, but, you know, like he talked about it being American, you know, jiu-jitsu.
Well, it's a hybrid look. Jiu-jitsu is a rapidly evolving hybrid art that takes what's useful. It's sort of back to Jeet Kune Do. It takes what's useful, rejects what's not. It's that philosophy.
Right.
And, you know, it's taken the United States by storm. It's taken the world by storm. And there are some phenomenal guys out there now, you know, Americans who are doing jiu-jitsu. So it's just interesting to me. I don't care about that. To me, it's just jiu-jitsu.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's how, I mean, I'm young, obviously in this world. But like, I always tell everybody, like, I don't care as long as I get to train. Like, as long as I'm training and I'm learning from somebody and I'm building friendships with people in this community that is growing rapidly. And, I know, and I've talked about it in the past being somewhat small. And this is, just information, Chad's like, the jiu-jitsu community is not huge, but it's growing, obviously. And it's getting bigger and everything like this. But this, like having the ability to have connections with people who train in it. And then this podcast and your podcast, like, putting that information out there. Like I like it so much. I want everyone to know about it. Like I want people to be like, hey, there's a lot to this. There's a lot that you can learn that can help you just in life in general, not just, oh, I want to go fight people. It's like, well, that's really not it. It is, but it's not.
I think everybody should train. It's, in the Middle East, in Dubai, for example, it's compulsory. It's offered in high school. In school, you can train jiu-jitsu, and that'd be kind of a cool thing. I mean, on the other hand, maybe they would turn it into a sport with a rule set, and maybe they'd wreck it in a certain way. But I think, man, there's so many lessons to be learned from jiu-jitsu that are applicable to life. Not the least of which is that there's no participation trophies in this sport. You have to earn it. And that's a very powerful thing. People are shielded from adversity so much in the modern world, or you're not really, you don't need to be tested. Really. It's, life. When I was talking to Mike Palladino, we talked about this. Real life sometimes isn't all that hard, honestly, but jiu-jitsu's hard and it can really make you more resilient. And it's just a beautiful sport.
It does teach you that for sure about being resilient. And obviously the confidence comes, and that's kind of the martial art mantra. The humility, because you fail a lot in jiu-jitsu, and just the suppression of the ego. You can walk around in your real life with your chest puffed out thinking you're a badass, but get on the jiu-jitsu mat, you'll be humbled. Right. Quickly. I kind of joke when I see people out and I'm like, oh, or if I'm not out, but like a conversation or something, or if I'm involved with something and someone be like, oh, that dude thinks like he's super badass. And I'm like, oh, we should invite him to the gym.
Yeah.
Like, because not with me, but with someone else in the gym, not with this old guy. Like, I got a lot to learn, man. I can hold my own, but just at the white belt level, I'm good.
Yeah, but you don't need that lesson in humility.
No, not at all. I'm cool. Then I have
there's a guy who he drops by to watch class every once in a while when he's out drinking. He'll pop in after a few drinks and watch class, and he has done some other martial arts. I don't know what, he'll always kind of pull me aside. He's like, listen, I'd go for a throat chop, right? Like he'd tell me what he would do. Like he always goes, man, you guys, it's putting way too much intensity in. I would just like, and you can see him off in the corner, like doing these moves, like he's thinking. So I always tell him, I'm like, listen, come on in, man. Or right now, just empty your pockets. Come on, let's train, man. Come on the mat. I always invite him, but he
just wants no part of that.
Not happening.
No, it's not happening.
He doesn't want to be, humidity. Like he doesn't want that. He doesn't want to be humbled.
The delusion bubble is a beautiful place to be. Yep. You don't want to pop that thing.
You don't want to. Yep.
Which so many people live in that bubble.
Yep.
Which is, I guess it's not unreal. The more you think about it, it's like, yeah, I can see everything that's going on now. I get it. Like, whatever, that's you. Fine. Do you do whatever you want. So, yeah. Did you find when you became a black belt, was it, and Chad and I have talked about this before, did you go, okay, it's like a whole new learning? Like I'm black belt now. So like, I'm going to start over, basically. Not start over, but you know what I mean? Like this is a different world versus white to purple.
Yeah. In one sense, all of a sudden, all of the pressure is lifted because you don't have that next belt that you're working to get. There's always this, when you're a white belt, you really want that blue belt. When you're a blue belt, you're like, am I really worthy of the blue belt? Like there's, okay, should I go test myself in competition? And then you get your purple. Like there's always this next thing you're working toward. Sure. There's questions about yourself. But I think when you get to black belt, you're like, you know what? I've been through all the battles. I've been through all the stages of development. And now I can just be a student of the art. I can train for the joy of training. And, and there are levels deep levels to this game. Obviously,
yeah.
you know, a new black belt is not the same as a 10-year black belt, but you know, you start getting glimpses into kind of some deeper aspects as you get close to black belt, or maybe that transition. There's some deeper epiphanies that you start having about efficiency and connectedness, and, you know, rounding the corners, being more efficient. And, you know, I can just imagine those things are going to continue. I don't think you will ever stop having epiphanies. I find new things all the time, connections that were literally invisible yesterday, and yet it's been there my whole life. Nice, obvious. Yeah. And you're like, there to there. Why didn't I see that? I've been doing this 15 years, 16 years. Why didn't I see that to that when literally it's right there?
It's right there. Mm-hmm. Or you go back to stuff. I was talking to one of my blue belts the other day, and he's like, "What are you working on?" I'm like, I don't know. You know, I have a very, you know, open guard game. I do a lot of tripod sweeps, straight arm bars and stuff. And at blue belt, purple belt, I ran X guard a lot. And he's like, maybe you should start. So that night I started running X guard again. And now I'm just back into that.
Yeah. It's so funny. You actually rediscover your old game, because at every stage of your development, you will have things that work for you. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you have to give up those things to go to the new things. And then you will forget about those things. And then eventually you'll rediscover them. You'll be like, oh, hello, old friend. Yep. I remember you. Yeah. I was good at you at one point. Let's get to know each other again.
Yeah, go revisit. Come on in. Doors open.
Yeah. I used to watch those old school Marcelo Garcia DVDs on X Guard so much. That was like the guy to watch.
Yeah, I play a little bit of X Guard, mostly when people defend. If I'm playing Ashi and they stand up, I switch to X Guard. Like there's a couple scenarios that I drop into X Guard doing. I don't generally try to get to X Guard as something that I'm proactively doing. More, it's a response defensively to what someone is doing.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
When's the last time you competed?
I competed a bunch at blue belt, including we went to the U.S. Open right before I got my purple belt.
Oh, I competed.
Nice. I got bronze. I was in the wrong weight category. I competed at 185, which is my walk around weight. And I showed up and I was like, holy cow, these dudes are big. But I took bronze, and I got my purple after that. And we ended up moving to Maui for a year.
Oh, okay. That's when you moved. Okay.
Yeah, that's when we moved as a new. I went to train under Luis Heredia, who's one of Hickson's black belts, which was really cool to train there. Really cool environment, tough dudes.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, what's that environment like? Just I always wonder, like, is it the same like here, or is it? Yeah, tell us.
It's pretty similar. But what's interesting is guys from Hawaii. On the one hand, they are the most chill, friendly guys you will ever meet. They'll shake your hand and hug you. But when you bump fist, it is legitimately on. These dudes love to fight, and they bring it 100%. Like, I would call Roy Dean on my way home from training. I was like, okay, I'm going to quit. And he's like, no. I'm like, dude, these guys are legit. They're all surfers. They go surfing during the day. They train jiu-jitsu at night. But cardio is like insanely good cardio. And then you get these big Samoan guys with the massive necks. I remember there was this one black belt that trained up there, and he was like 350 pounds. And he would just lay there, and I mounted him and my knees wouldn't touch the ground. I'm like, okay, dude, this is like the most ludicrous thing in the world. There is no scenario under which I could ever defeat you.
I was just talking to guys in the gym. Go ahead, Roy. I was just going to
close the loop on the competition thing, because so there were no competitions that year.
Okay.
And then we ended up moving to Maine, of all places. Long story, which we don't need to get into. But and then I ended up blowing a disc out of my back. I had back surgery, knocked me out for a year. And then I tore my rotator cuff and had surgery. Like, I had a string of injuries. And when I came back, I was like, okay, maybe my competition days are over, because it just gets harder and harder. But yeah, I had some early competition experiences, which I really enjoyed.
That's awesome, man. No, that's very good. I always wonder what it's like to train in other, I've talked to people who've trained in the UK and Ireland and stuff. And I'm like, is it do guys approach the same? Is it a fight every time, or is it like, hey, we're going to flow tonight, or we're going to work on some stuff? Or is it just like, no, we're knuckle dragging, bang out? Like,
no, it's different. I mean, every gym has its technical influence. You know, when I moved to Maine, I was training under Alexi Cruz, who was Ricardo De La Riva's first black belt. So it was very, very influenced by the De La Riva lineage. Guys would invert a lot. Guys would learn the berimbolo sometimes before they'd even learn how to escape sight control.
Wow.
And they were ridiculous at taking your back. I remember showing up there as a purple belt, and I was a pretty good purple belt. I had trained under Luis, who was Hickson's guy, very fundamentally solid jiu-jitsu, tough environment. And I went to Maine. All of a sudden, these guys were taking my back like nothing. I'm like, holy cow, what is going on here? What is up? You know, it's kind of forced me to reverse engineer. Okay, I'm not a big De La Riva guy. I got to figure this out. So yeah, every environment has its technical influence and sort of its worldview, its philosophical influence. Some guys are all, much more intense. Some guys are much more playful. And yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag. Yeah. Okay. And that seems to be the consensus, like across the board, and which it should be. I mean, honestly, I love that you mentioned the berimbolo. So I've been, and my body style is not set up for berimbolo.
Yeah, me neither.
But I like, it's the wrestle up part though. Like, people are using the berimbolo to wrestle up, and I'm like, you can still wrestle up without doing that, right? So I've been trying to look at some stuff just from sitting position. And we have another one of our other black belts, Pete, that's in the gym. He's really, really good at wrestling. He wrestled. We actually graduated at the same time, so he does a lot of wrestle up stuff. So I've been kind of picking his brain and kind of going. Well,
I look at the berimbolo more as a kind of a half Granby roll. It's like a wrestling Granby roll.
Yeah, it is
in a way. And you can apply, there's so many contexts that move is applicable to recover guard, to, there's a bunch of scenarios that I teach and that I do. And so I actually do some of those moves, but I typically don't berimbolo. Like, that's just my body doesn't work that way like yours, but I can half Granby, and there's some scenarios that actually work pretty well for me to do that.
Nice. Very cool. Good.
Yeah, and I feel that some of that stuff, like you said, it's not for your body type, but learning it to defend it sometimes works well too, right? At least the mechanical part of it.
That's what happens in the gym sometimes. Chad and we'll teach whatever we're going to learn that week or that day or that night or whatever it is we're doing, and it's difficult, and sometimes it's stuff, and people are like, this is awful. I don't want to learn this. Like, I'm never going to do this. And I'm like, but you shouldn't have that mindset. You shouldn't be like, I'm never going to do this, because if you open your mind and go, hey, it doesn't matter what my body style is like, maybe I can take a little piece of this and use it to maybe tweak it a little bit for my body style. Or maybe you can do it and you just don't even know it, and you just keep trying it. Next thing you know, you get that muscle memory built in and you're able to do it. We were doing trucks a couple weeks ago, and trucking is awesome, because it's like, it looks like wizardy, because you're like, how did you just do that and take my back? Like, what the heck? But it's also difficult because you have to roll, and you got to lock your legs right and whatever type of truck you're doing. And there was guys like, I don't like this, like, it's uncomfortable and I'm not good at this. And I'm like, just keep doing it, man. Just keep doing it. And let's drill it. Just keep drilling it and you'll get it. I like them, even though I'm a bigger person. I mean, I'm like, ooh, I like that, because
I think of jiu-jitsu as just fundamentally, it's just a movement art. Honestly,
for sure. Yeah.
All sports are just movement arts. If you learn to play tennis, you're learning to move your body in ways that are mechanically appropriate to play tennis, right? So jiu-jitsu is just a movement art. And most of the time the goal is to move yourself, not to move someone else. And so the more patterns you can drill, the more ways of learning to move your body that you can drill, the better you're going to be, because it just increases your mobility and it allows you to maybe have more options on the palette. But yeah, a lot of guys, I always say that in the real world out there, we tend to operate in this vertical plane where there's no friction. Everything's very linear. We walk, we push a shopping cart, we drive, we sit, everything is linear. And it's such a foreign thing for a lot of people to learn how to move their body in 3 dimensions. Yeah. And it might feel weird. Oh, I'm never going to do that. Well, no, you just haven't really learned how to move your body in that way. If you take the time to do it, maybe you'll find that you will use those things.
That's why jiu-jitsu, I would say, and you both probably would agree to this, is that's why the mountain to climb jiu-jitsu is long and hard, because you are training your body to do something that it's never ever done before. Yeah. So all those little nuances that you're training your mind, let alone getting that muscle memory in your body, in your mind at the same time. So it's a long journey. Like, it's not going to happen
and
overnight.
The efficiency of that, you learn a move and maybe it takes you, if you can say, okay, this move has 12 segments, whatever that is, my elbow comes up, my hand goes down, my this,
sure.
It's, you can, and then by the time you get to black belt, you can do that in one continuous fluid, so it is a continuum. It's not, it's a movement pattern, but you will keep honing and rounding those corners over time till it becomes a very smooth thing. And that's, one of the difficulties of jiu-jitsu as well, is just becoming very fluid in your movement patterns.
And very, very matter of fact, right? Like fluid, and like you said, one thing, you can't do one without the other. I was talking to one of the white belts the other night, and he's like, I get stuck in side control a lot. Don't we all, right? That's one of them. And there's side control escapes. But what I try to do is, okay, what are you doing to get your guard pass and ending up in side control?
Yes.
So most of my guys, or a lot of guys, are either framing and not shrimping, or shrimping and not framing.
Yes.
Which you have to do them both together, like you said, and get those fluid movements together.
Well, one of the big epiphanies, I think, is that, and, I actually told this to my students the other day, is that I think that there is in some ways a fundamental flaw in the way that we teach jiu-jitsu, in that we tend to teach escape sequences from the worst possible scenario. So side control escape, you're flat on your back, you've got to get your arms into posture, and now we start the escape. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Between them crossing the knee line and getting past your guard and you going flat on your back, there were a ton of opportunities for you to reconfigure yourself in a way that makes more sense. But sometimes, because we're learning these escape sequences from the worst case scenario, the minute someone passes your guard, your response is to just go flat on your back, because in your mind, you're thinking, okay, now I got to go to side mount escape. And you've missed all of these opportunities and so I rethink, okay, maybe we need to teach this slightly differently so that we can inculcate better habits, so that guys don't end up in those positions as a matter of fact, right? That should be the last thing that happens when the guy really was able to either, get ahead of you and flatten you and all that. That shouldn't be your go-to position.
Yeah, not at all.
Build that up, or teach the body to stop that, which, Chad, you've said this a ton. It's like, and you just alliterated that, seconds ago. It's like, well, what happened? Like, what happened before that? Like,
as Kurt Osiander said, you screwed up a long time ago.
Yes. Yeah. Man, how's he doing too, by the way? Just, I know it's random person to talk about, but he was not doing well. Like, his health was
so my friend Devin, who's a brown belt under Roy Dean now, he used to be under Kurt Osiander.
Okay.
He and some other guys up there. And so I have a little bit of connection to them. And last I heard is he had been in rehab and he was having some medical problems, but I know he just, he's not online much, so it's hard to get a hold of him. It's hard to communicate with him, but I hope he's doing okay.
I hope he's doing okay too. He is a cool dude. Good jiu-jitsu. Had a lot of good stuff out there always. I mean,
good personality.
Good personality. Yeah. Funny personality for jiu-jitsu, until I realized all the other people that I met in jiu-jitsu, and I was like, oh no, this is right on par. It's like, this is exactly how everybody is. This is cool. I fit right in. I just don't fit in anywhere else now.
You found your posse.
Yeah, I did. I explain it to people all the time. I'm like, I can't even talk about this because you guys have no idea what I'm talking about. And you don't care. Like, you don't want to listen to me talk about this. So I was at a birthday party a couple of weeks ago, and I was just kind of like, hey, everybody. And then someone actually, and I text Chad someone there was doing jiu-jitsu, female, and she started asking me questions about it. And I was like, ooh.
Oh, isn't that amazing when you run into someone that, it's funny. I went to California a couple of weeks ago to train with Vlad Kulikov and Mike Palladino.
Oh, nice.
Out at this grappling retreat that was just amazing. It was really cool.
That's I know.
The grappling retreat.
Yeah.
But we were driving home, and we were a couple hours north of Sacramento. We stopped to get gas in some little town called Williams, just a little town in the middle of nowhere in Northern California. And I go in to use the restroom, and then I'm grabbing a drink out of the cooler thing. And I can tell that the guy at the counter is just staring at me kind of intently. And California is a mask state, and I'm not wearing a mask. I'm being defiant. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy's just pissed off that I'm not wearing a mask. And I go up to the counter, and he goes, "Do you make YouTube videos?"
Wow.
So it's funny, you run into people that do jujitsu. And so we're, shooting the breeze, he and I.
That's awesome. Did you go back and you were like, I made the big time now? Did you autograph anything for him?
No, it's just such a funny, odd subculture, right?
Yeah.
In some little town. That's nuts.
And with today's technology and what we're doing and how we're giving information to people and how we're receiving information. And I have 3 kids, and last year they did a ton of e-learning. And my job specifically, we never thought that I would ever work from home, ever. It's just not, it almost seemed impossible to do what I do. And it was like, oh no, you guys are all going home. And now I'm still working from home, and we're not going back anytime soon. Like, it's just going to be the new normal, whatever. It's fine.
It's great. I mean, I've most of my life I've done my own thing, just working from home, working on a laptop. And I can't imagine having to go punch a clock somewhere.
Yeah. I'm kind of used to this now. Like, I just I take my youngest to school, and my wife takes the older 2, and she has to go back to the office. She's in the office now. So just me and the dogs chill out, and I pull all my computer stuff up here and just get working. Yeah. But it's kind of funny when you think about technology. Like, did we ever think that kids were going to learn, or college kids were going to constantly learn from home, So like the YouTube stuff and all that. And Chad and I talk about.
Chad, you've been doing jiu-jitsu long enough that you remember back when there wasn't that much information. You'd have to maybe go find a DVD, or you'd have to go seek something out, or go to a seminar, or.
I was a seminar junkie too.
I was a seminar junkie. I really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
is probably tough. That's probably tough in Ohio. You probably had to travel a lot.
I went to Columbus a lot. There was, we're in Canton, Ohio, which is close to the Football Hall of Fame area, if you know Ohio at all. But, we're about an hour south of Cleveland. There was a little bit of stuff up there, but Columbus was probably more, I would go down there and see George Gergel and do seminars with him. And, but I got a little more pickier as I got more advanced on who I went to, spend my money on, I guess, Yeah.
Not
all instructors are created equal sometimes,
No, that's true.
Just because you're, a world-class, maybe you're an Abu Dhabi champion, doesn't mean you can teach jiu-jitsu. Yeah. We've all experienced that, but,
being able to transmit knowledge is a very different skill set.
For sure.
And again, it's that internal focus versus external. If you're a competitor, you are relentlessly internally focused on what will make you better. And sometimes, for you, certain things come so easy because your body works a certain way. But if you're an instructor, you have to realize, no, this is a cross section of people out there. You can't teach them your A game. That's not necessarily going to work for the average person out there.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And just, finding knowledge. And I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of good instructors. And I got my black belt from James Klingerman. I don't know if you know James or not. He's out of Indiana. Been around a long time. He's an awesome instructor. Yeah. I'm really good friends with Christian Woods Manzi. We've, he's come and done several seminars, and the way he teaches and his concepts of jiu-jitsu are awesome. So just like
it's always good. It's always a benefit when you have when your instructor has provided you with a killer influence.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes easy. You just try to kind of model what they taught you. I mean, I try to teach the way Roy Dean teaches. I mean, he's a master of, a kind of minimalism. He doesn't over explain. Nothing drives me nuts more than the teacher that takes you on this long journey to get to the point, or the starting and stopping, stopping. Show me the technique before, so that I at least know what I'm trying to do here?
And
so I feel like I learned from someone who was very masterful in the way that he teaches. And I've tried to kind of model that in my own teaching.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good. But like the guy I started with, I was a blue, but maybe just got his purple belt. It was in his garage, or I'm sorry, in his basement is where I started in this little country town. And every time I would come, when I started going regularly, he charged me $5 a class. You know, he had a handful of us down there, and every time he would give me a DVD. Like he would buy the 6-disc Marcelo box set, and then he would make copies for us. And I remember, I don't know if you remember Pedro Carvalho. I don't know if you remember that name. It's old school, but it was a 26 disc set.
Wow.
Or I'm sorry, 26 volumes. However many discs that was, but he gave me this. I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Like, it was just it was so much, but that was his thing. He was always giving us DVDs to watch.
Yeah. I was a DVD collector, blue belt, purple belt. I am masked. I still have this binder with 100 different DVDs. And I've thought about throwing it on eBay and selling it because I've already ripped them all. I've got them all digitized.
Oh,
what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this, this notebook, this fat notebook full of
and that's stuff. Back when that Marcelo Garcia 6-disc set was probably $300.
Yeah.
Now, but BJJ Fanatics, you get some for $40 and it's streaming.
Well, some of those classic titles are actually more expensive if you go look at them on eBay.
Are they?
Yeah.
Because they just don't exist. Because it's like the vault. Like it's like pulling something out of a vault and going, this doesn't exist, man. Like no one's gonna see this. Like no one's watching VHS anymore. All the stuff's been converted to whatever's on DVD. And now you have you kind of have a gold mine. You have like a treasure that's in this vault. And it's like, do you want to see where some old stuff came from and what other guys have emulated their game from? That's kind of cool, man.
I still say the best and the worst ones were the Mario Sperry ones. They were
some of those ones where, the English was horrible and, they didn't know how to film it well. And
right.
It was just,
Did you guys just like watch movements, like not worry about the language? You just like watch movements?
I think the Marcelo ones were like dubbed. I think
they were dubbed. Yeah.
Oh, were they really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I might have some of those.
Yeah. Yep.
What got you into it, Rick? I mean, was there like a specific something that said, I want to do that?
Hoist Gracie, UFC 1.
Yeah. All right.
Like everybody
I'm going to stop asking that because that's
is that what everybody says?
Every answer says that.
I think our,
it's a generation, right?
Yeah. Our age. And if you came from another martial art too, Rick, right? You did some other martial arts.
I did Japanese jiu-jitsu for a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I grew up in the 80s.
Was a stop. I actually did that after UFC 1 because in 1993, there was no place to learn jiu-jitsu where I was anyway.
Right. No.
And
I was going to say there probably wasn't anywhere.
The Torrance Academy existed. I think the Machados had their academy out in the San Fernando Valley in California. There are a few places, but not where I was. So I thought, well, this is maybe the next best thing. And so I did Japanese jiu-jitsu, and it was good because there was a ton of judo in that particular discipline. And even though they didn't spar, that's the one Achilles heel of Japanese jiu-jitsu is that there's no sparring. So you're not really learning effectiveness. You're just learning techniques. But there was a ton of judo that I learned, and it served me well. I still teach judo in a lot of the ways that I was taught.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. That's very cool. That I always wonder, and I've done some judo moves in class because I know them just from past stuff of learning and picking up stuff and being taught different stuff. So I'm able to do that mostly at stand up, like standing up and being able to do certain throws or, hip tosses and stuff like that. But that's pretty cool. I never knew this. And I'm Chad, I'm sure you knew this. We just have never talked about it. I didn't know that they didn't spar. I didn't know that the Japanese didn't spar in that.
Very few sparred once. We had randori one time. I remember my instructor, he let us do randori just like one round each, like 1 3-minute round each. And it was the ugliest jiu-jitsu you can ever imagine. And, I remember not really, because you don't know what you don't know. And I remember kind of experiencing this, literally seeing nothing that looked like what we were drilling and training. but I didn't quite put it together yet at that moment to realize that, we're not learning effectiveness. And I remember this brown belt. No, was he? This guy had asked it was almost the end of class. And he's like, well, how do we ask the instructor, how do we know whether this stuff that we're learning really works? And I remember my instructor kind of giving this little speech, and I don't remember what he said, but I remember it wasn't a real convincing answer. Unlike in jiu-jitsu, we're like, well, we know it works because we're literally testing it. We're engaged in the scientific method literally every time we train.
Every time, yeah. Anytime you're on the mat, anytime you do anything, and see it or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the appeal, right? I mean, how many martial arts can you go 100%? Like, we're going to go at it and see if you have an immediate answer. If what I'm doing works, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's, watching Hoist in those old UFCs where, I came up in karate back in the 80s and, he was kicking the butt of, I don't want to say my heroes, but the guys that did what I did. I'm like, what is this?
That was, it began, UFC 1 began answering some of those questions because it was always which style is better. Although now I look back, honestly, I look back at those first UFCs and I think they're just infomercials for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I think it was all very
100%.
It was all very controlled.
Yeah.
Jorge obviously
knew what he was doing.
Yeah. No, he knew what he's doing. And obviously you don't always know the outcome. I mean, Hoist could have gotten knocked out or something, but I think they knew from all their Gracie challenges how this was going to go down, and it became nothing but and how effective it became because we're all doing jiu-jitsu now.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, best infomercial ever.
Yeah, I was going to say the best infomercial presenting the greatest martial art probably.
Have you guys watched? Occasionally I'll go back and watch those first UFCs, and it just looks so crude now.
It's hard to watch because it's hard to watch because of the crudeness. And even if you start doing, I like to film. I like to break down film. So if I start breaking that down, I'm like, this is awful. What is this?
Yeah, the announcers had no idea. I remember there was a heel hook in one of the early ones, and the announcer was saying like, oh yeah, that's putting so much pressure on the leg that he's tapping from the pain and all this stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know what was worse, the skill, I don't say the skill, but the announcers or the fights, right?
Or the refs that had no idea when to stop.
They didn't know what to do, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. And then you have,
but look where we're at now.
I was going to say, then you have us now, like where we're at now, and look how much it's grown and look how big it is. And, look how far it's come.
In a short time, really, right? Not that long.
How big do you think jiu-jitsu is now as in the US? Not, I won't say outside of the US because we know where it has grown. Obviously in Brazil, it's been there for a long time and all that, like what they've done and built, with the Gracies and whatnot. But from the US standpoint, it's pretty big now, right?
Yeah, I think if it's hard to know, but I have a friend who's a judo black belt, and he says that he goes, man, judo's dying. It's just being gobbled up by jiu-jitsu. And so I have a feeling that this is happening with a lot of the arts. Taekwondo is big because they have a system where they get little kids.
Yeah.
It's all about the little kids. And karate, it's about the little kids, getting them in there. And those will probably survive. But I think a lot of arts are,
they're starting to go to the wayside.
Starting to go to the wayside, I think.
Yeah. And I was listening to a podcast, it was a while ago, and they had I can't remember who it was. There was a well-known judo guy there, and he talked about it as well, how judo just isn't being taught anymore, and there's no interest in it. And they were talking about jiu-jitsu as well, because it was like a whole combo, but it just went into a whole thing of like, judo's kind of going away. There are movements that are being incorporated in jiu-jitsu, but the whole plethora of judo it's
the rule set. Honestly, judo has been so constrained now by a rule set. What we do here in Brazilian jiu-jitsu is really old school judo. If you look at the old school judo curriculum, they had a ground game. They did newaza, and it was balanced. There was a good balance between throws and what happened on the ground. You look at the old Kozen judo tapes from the 1940s, and you're seeing omoplatas, and you're seeing triangle chokes. You're seeing all the elements Now, what the Brazilians did is they brought a training methodology and a refinement to it. They certainly contributed to it, but essentially it was old school judo. And when judo became an Olympic sport, when it became, it overemphasized the stand-up game. Now, if you throw someone, you literally have 30 seconds to submit them or they stand you back up. And so I think it's the rule set that has really hamstrung that art. And if judo wants to survive, it needs to just become an open art again, where they do everything. But in doing so, it'll become jiu-jitsu. So it's sort of like, what's the point?
Yeah,
I suppose
it's like a catch-22. Like, what do you do?
It'll be jiu-jitsu with a greater emphasis on the stand-up game, I suppose.
Sure. Do you think they'll add jiu-jitsu to the Olympics anytime? I know that was a big talk. This year it seemed like such a big talk. Like, I say talk in our community, social media or whatnot. It was, hey, when we got to get jiu-jitsu's got to be in the Olympics, got to be Olympics. And Chad and I've never talked about it, but I've always like mentally wondered, I'm like, will that be something that happens, or is that just not going to be part of? I
don't know. I'm torn on that for a few different reasons. Number one is, if it becomes an Olympic sport, it's going to have a tightly constrained rule set. And will that be an ever constricting rule set that will turn jiu-jitsu into something else?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Will it become judo in a sense of that constriction? If they keep, say, an Abu Dhabi rule set or something like that, then sure, why not? The problem with grappling arts is I think it takes an educated eye to know what you're looking at. Absolutely. Judo is easy. You throw the guy. For the viewer who knows nothing about this, it's easy to comprehend. Boxing is easy to comprehend. You're punching the guy. Yeah. Wrestling isn't that hard. You're trying to pin the guy on his back. And so in some ways, it's a difficult art to watch. Even when I was a white belt, literally I would watch grappling and things I'd be watching with my instructor, Roy, and he would be seeing things happening that were literally invisible to me. I couldn't see those subtle shifts of the hips. I couldn't see, some of the nuances that he was like, oh, what a great move. And I'm like, I have no idea what you just saw, because I don't know what
That's me.
So I don't know, that's one of those questions where will it ever draw enough spectators to be a viable Olympic sport? Sure. I have no idea.
That's good. I mean, that's a good answer too, because we have talked about rule sets. Like, what's your favorite rule set, Rick, right now? Like, out of anything you watch Fight to Win on Floor.
Yeah. Who's number one?
Yeah. Who's number one? Like, Chad and I talk about that. So are you gi, no gi, both?
No, I love them both. I mean, okay. I love training in the gi. I like no gi. As an older guy, I can slow people down on the gi, so it works a little better for me. But I think they're both great. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of IBJJF rules, especially with regard to the leg game. The submission only stuff is much more exciting in a way, because there's no point, so you have no choice but to go Engage. For the kill. The EBI rule set is pretty cool. I like their overtime approach. I think that's kind of interesting, and it provides some excitement. The ADCC rules are interesting in that there's no points for the first 5 minutes,
right?
Which, does that encourage some level of stalling, or does it not? I'm not sure. Right.
Yeah, because you get penalized too, like for pulling guard and everything, like early and stuff like that, don't you? With ADCC rules. Yeah. And Chad and I have talked about like who's number one. And like, we love watching it and we talk about it all the time, but it's always like, stop with these like 15, 20 minute matches to where it's like, oh, wait, like these guys aren't really doing anything. And then the last 5 minutes, it's like, well, you're soaking wet, dude. Like nothing's going to happen unless you're, 10
minutes is about as long as you really want to go.
Yeah.
And that's pushing it sometimes with these high level guys, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, I'm going to watch it still. Like, I'm not complaining. Like everybody out there, I'm not complaining. I will watch it. I watch as much as I possibly can. My kids are usually asking me like, Dad, you watching something on your phone? I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm watching.
Yeah.
I got a lot to learn, man. I got a lot of catching up to do.
I wish they do some more EBIs. Eddie Bravo hasn't done EBIs in a long time. He switched to that combat jiu-jitsu more.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. I'm not sure why, what's going on there, whether he hasn't been able to monetize it the way he wanted or something.
Could be.
But you're right. There hasn't been one in a while. And those were I mean, that became they were good. That became kind of the first tournament that really sort of pushed the no-gi game to the forefront.
For sure. Yeah.
The combat jiu-jitsu is it's kind of getting popular now. I mean, not kind of, but I mean, it's more guys are wanting to do it. Someone was just asking me, when I was getting a tattoo, Chad at our tattoo guy, and Rick's a fellow ink guy. I can see the ink on his arm. He was asking me, one of the guys there was like, "Hey, do you see that? What's going on with this guy slapping another guy in the face? He just hauled off and slapped him." I was like, "Oh, that's probably combative jiu-jitsu is what you saw." And there he was like, "They were like fighting." I said, "Yeah, open hands though." I said, "Those hands weren't closed." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess I didn't really pay attention." I was like, "Yeah, that's combat jiu-jitsu." I was like, "It is getting bigger. I know more people are trying to cross into that area. It's like, we don't want to go full MMA, but we want to go,
we want to smack each other.
We want to smack each other in the face."
It changes the game. I mean, we've got some MMA gloves and we don't do it too often, but occasionally we throw them on and just to keep the jiu-jitsu honest, and it changes it for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, it has to. Yeah.
Everything changes when you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "I want to do that." It's like, "Hey, wait till you get punched."
Yeah.
And they're like, "I don't want to do that no more." That hurts. It's like, yeah, it does. It hurts worse than, getting choked or whatever, bow and arrowed, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure.
All right, man. Well, we're not going to keep you too much longer, brother. Hey, so you got to tell me, like, what do you want jiu-jitsu to be for you at the end? Like, what do you want it like
at the end? My legacy. We're back to the legacy.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You've got too much great content out there. You got to tell. Okay, let's do this. What do you want to leave everybody with in jiu-jitsu? In
terms of jiu-jitsu and content, or in terms of life?
Just like your jiu-jitsu life. Jiu-jitsu life.
I think that if nothing else, I want to be an example of someone who just is willing to do whatever I'm into doing, regardless of my age. I've been kind of a late bloomer throughout life in a lot of ways, and that I've pursued things like whatever interests me, I just kind of go after it and pursue it. And I kind of don't care. I think a lot of barriers are self-imposed. People tell themselves they can't do certain things at certain ages, or they're too old to do that. And it's mostly just your own self-imposed barriers. So I think my hope is that I'm an example of someone that just followed his bliss and, just followed my dreams and tried to make myself happy in the process of doing that, and maybe be an example to guys for just, being willing to just do the things that make you happy and don't worry so much about the rest.
Awesome. No, it's a great response. Perfect, and it's a perfect response, because
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. We're older, and it's a mindset,
totally.
Like in you're doing that right now. Like you're passing a torch, like I said in earlier in the podcast, and you're giving information to people. Your students are looking forward to you teaching them and giving them knowledge. And, Roy is still teaching you and talking to you and obviously leading you and stuff. So it's a combination of everything. And I tell Chad this all the time, to where it's like, yeah, he's giving me knowledge and I want to pass that knowledge. Like I know I'm older, but I relish the day that I can teach someone else. And I still do in class, even though I'm younger, but that's just my mindset. It's kind of how I am. I love to give information to people. I want them to be better. I want them to be successful. And I see you as being that same type of person with the content that you're giving, the podcast that you're running, and the videos that you've put out there. Like, you want people to be successful in jiu-jitsu and in life. So
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well said.
That's awesome, man. Good. Shout out anything you want. Sponsors, your gym. I know we got it in there. I'm going to put it. I'll put everything.
Just my channel, The Art of Skill on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/The Art of Skill. And I don't know what that channel is. It's just me kind of pushing stuff out. And my hope is that I can grow it to the point where I can bring other voices, other people, maybe do some longer format stuff, maybe some documentary stuff. I don't know what will happen with the channel, but I'm just nursing it along, and I'm hoping that it can, become something really cool that becomes a great resource for people to just be inspired by the content. I love that inspirational kind of stuff where it just kind of helps people, stay on the path and realize that there are others on the path that are doing it as well, and so on. So yeah, that's the only thing to plug, honestly.
Awesome, man.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you, Rick, so much for your time and everything that you're doing. It's been a huge inspiration for me. I thank Chad a ton for sharing that with me and, our ability to hook up with you. And thanks for coming on and hanging out with us, hanging for an hour here or so and just chatting about jiu-jitsu and life, and keep doing what you're doing, man. Bless you and all the stuff that you've got going on and everything you're doing, brother. Keep it up.
Yeah, you guys too. This was a real pleasure for me. You guys are a lot of fun to hang out with. And
thanks, man.
Hopefully one day we can actually hang out in person and
would love to
bump fists and do a little training.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I keep thinking, man, a van, I've got the camera, a van and a road trip would be awfully fun, and just start hitting all those places where I know people. But someday.
And there you go, man. It's like light bulb.
Yeah.
You travel with that camera, you build your documentary stuff.
Maybe we can get the channel to the point where I can sustain myself doing that. And, I could carve out some chunks of time to just go off and tell other people's stories. There's so many fascinating people out there that are doing cool stuff in the arts and in just the physical realm, or whatever, and just tell their stories would be really fun.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Keep it up, brother. Keep it up, Rick. Appreciate you so much, man. Take care. We'll catch up. All right, man. We'll see you.
Thanks, brother.
Take care.
Hey everyone, we hope you enjoyed the show today. Remember, go out there and check out all our sponsors. That's RollAmongUs.com, BattleBomb.com. At checkout, put in LimitLess20 to get a 20% discount on all products. We appreciate it very much. Not only will you be supporting them, but you'll be supporting the Limitless Radiocast podcast. It helps us come back each and every week, bring content to you guys and everything that you do. We love you guys. We're appreciative of you guys. We thank you for all the support. You guys take care. Come back next week.